I'm about to make some announcements on what's going to be in the new Arms Act. So gather people around, because what you're going to hear today will not be on the media. What you are going to hear today is a first for all of you, the supporters, the dealers, the movers and shakers, the hunters and gatherers. It's great to be among people who understand what it means to handle a firearm responsibly. People who know the value of discipline, respect, and safety that comes with firearms ownership. 5 years ago, I put my hand up for Parliament because I was tired of seeing responsible, law-abiding New Zealanders treated as the problem. I have watched rushed, reactionary lawmaking vilify licensed firearm owners while doing very little to stop criminals and gangs who ignore the law entirely. Like many of you, I spoke out against those changes from the outside because I knew that they were wrong. But I also came to realise that shouting from the sidelines wasn't enough. Real change had to come from the inside, from someone who actually understood firearms and knows what it means to use them safely. Today, 5 years later, I stand before you not just as a Member of Parliament, but as the Minister responsible for rewriting the Arms Act. And I can tell you, it's finally time to deliver on what I came to do. I want to thank those that have supported me to get to this stage. I hope that support continues into the future so that we can implement this bill once it becomes an act. Before we get into the details, I want to acknowledge something that cannot and should not be forgotten. Many of the early changes that our firearms laws have seen were driven by the senseless and tragic events of March 15, 2019. That day shook our nation to its core, and many of us, whether we use firearms or not, felt that horror deeply. Everyone here should understand how vital it is to keep firearms out of the wrong hands. We all share that goal. We all want a New Zealand where families are safe, communities are secure, and those who abuse firearms face the full force of the law. But the laws that followed March 15th were rushed, confused, they were unfair, and they punished the wrong people. They targeted us, the responsible, law-abiding New Zealanders, instead of the criminals and the gangs. Good law is not made in a panic. It's made with clear heads, sound evidence, and respect for those who already do the right thing. Public safety and respect for licensed firearm owners are not in conflict. They actually depend on each other. The current law, as you all know too well, is bureaucratic and it's a patchwork. It's over 40 years old and it's been amended dozens of times, often in haste and without proper scrutiny. And that's why the new Arms Act will be a fresh start that strengthens public safety while reducing unnecessary regulatory burdens on licensed firearm owners. And yes, I know that it's not easy sitting here listening to a minister when there's plenty of impressive firearms and equipment out there for you to look at. So let me make this worth your time, because the law we're putting in place is going to make a real difference to you. The full details of the new Arms Act will be announced very, very soon. The bill will have its first reading open for public submissions before the end of this year. But today, I want to give you a preview of some of the key changes that have been agreed to by Cabinet, especially those that matter most to the people that are here today. As someone who has hunted for food, represented New Zealand in 2 shooting disciplines, and taught firearm safety, I know firsthand that the vast majority of licensed firearm owners are responsible, safety conscious and law-abiding people. I often refer to us as the golden apples in a golden barrel. Hunters and gatherers, the first change in the new law will make it easier for you to store your firearms securely with greater flexibility. Under My Arms Act, you'll be able to store your firearms at any approved location, not just your primary residence. This is a practical, common sense fix for students, renters, and anyone whose home is not suited to secure storage. It's about ensuring firearms are stored safely, not about making life difficult for those trying to do the right thing. I tried to get rid of the firearms registry earlier this year, but the reality is that when rotten apples in our golden barrel of law-abiding owners feed guns to criminals, I'm even less likely to actually achieve this. What I have done in this rewrite is set clear legal limits on what can and cannot be recorded in the firearms registry. You've told me that you don't want irrelevant and unnecessary personal information recorded or information collected for one purpose but used for another. I've listened and there will be changes there. Clarity is also a major theme. Too often, unclear definitions have created confusion and unintentional non-compliance. The bill clarifies product definitions, manufacturing rules, and other grey areas so you can know exactly where you stand. And importantly, the regulator will now have a wider scope on the areas that it can issue guidance on, rather than the current topics that are only specified in law. The regulator will be required to consult with the firearms community before issuing new guidance to ensure it makes things clearer, not murkier, and is workable for the people who actually have to follow it. I've heard the concerns about the process for how licensing decisions are appealed. Many of you have told me that the current system lacks transparency, independence from police, and fairness. This leaves appealing to the district court as the only viable option, but that is costly and time-consuming for so many people. We find it's simply untenable. The new law will replace the current internal review process that is run by police with a new independent firearms licensing review committee. This new review committee must have included on it a member of the firearms community. This new committee will be impartial, will be consistent and trusted, reducing the need for costly court appeals. This is essential for the trust in the licensing system, improving compliance and ensuring applicants or licensed firearm owners renewing their licences are treated fairly. We're also fixing long-standing problems for specialist users such as pest controllers, dealers, collectors, museums and gunsmiths. For pest controllers and biosecurity professionals, endorsements will be extended from 2.5 to 5 years with a mid-term check-in. That means less paperwork, more stability and more time doing the critical work that they do to protect the environment and our economy. We're introducing multi-user agreements for approved pest control and biosecurity organisations. This will allow authorised employees to share restricted firearms, currently known as prohibited firearms, without a mountain of permits and registry updates every single time a firearm changes hands. I just read the next one. You may have noticed I said restricted. That's deliberate. We're replacing the term prohibited firearms with restricted firearms because these firearms were never truly prohibited. They were restricted to specific purposes. This is about using plain English and removing emotive, misleading language from our laws. Dealer licences will become business manager licences, recognising that earlier reforms expanded the scope of a dealer's licence to include a range of activities that cannot be accurately described as dealing. What was their licence duration will increase from 1 year to 5 years for those with good compliance records, ending the endless cycle of renewals that waste time and resources of businesses and the regulator for no public safety benefit. We will also clarify when a person is deemed to be in business. to provide greater clarity for when this licence is needed and reduce unnecessary applications. Employees of business licence holders will no longer need their own endorsements on their personal firearms licences, provided the business ensures proper training and informs the regulator of staffing changes. Removing this requirement streamlines the process, reduces costs, and eases the administrative burden for businesses and the regulator. Public safety will continue to be supported through other safeguards, including employer responsibility for staff conduct and mandatory training requirements. Import permits will now last for 12 months, giving businesses more flexibility and certainty, especially when orders are received in multiple consignments or if there are delays. For gunsmiths and licensed firearm owners, we're ending the excessive requirement for a permit to possess when conducting short-term repairs. If the job's done within 7 days or involves permanent deactivation or conversion, no permit will be needed. This exemption for conversions and deactivations complements our broader changes that provide a clear pathway back to compliance. There are a few people out there who may have unintentionally found themselves in lawful possession of a prohibited firearm, particularly individuals whose firearms were reclassified during 2019 and the 2020 legislative changes. Those who were unaware that their firearm became prohibited, such as some who are still holding a lever action 22 with a tubular magazine of more than 10 rounds. Under the new law, there will be a simple, practical process for permanently deactivating or converting restricted firearms into standard ones. These reforms will enhance public safety by encouraging greater compliance with firearms regulations and helping move firearms out of the grey market and back into lawful possession. Museums and collectors will also see improvements. Museum staff who handle firearms as part of their work can obtain a specific museum worker licence without needing to personally have a firearms licence, and collectors will gain greater flexibility over how they store vital parts. Additionally, there will be a separate curator licence for museums that display arms rather than being included in what is the current dealer licence regime. This reflects the concerns about the impact, cost and disproportionate compliance burdens are having on the ability for museums to operate. Now, while we're making things fairer for responsible owners, we're also getting tougher where it counts. The bill will introduce automatic disqualification from holding a firearms licence for gang members. Less than 1% of New Zealanders belong to gangs, but they're responsible for nearly a quarter of all firearms offending. We're also creating a number of new offences, including for diversion, for the illegal printing of 3D firearms and parts, and possession of digital files without a firearms licence, and for possessing firearms where markings have been intentionally removed. Penalties for all offences have been updated. Serious offences have increased for the first time since 1983. These updates are to reflect the risk to public safety and to disincentivise the rotten apples from committing crime. And for minor, unintentional breaches, the regulator will now have more flexible tools to encourage compliance, including infringement notices and temporary suspensions instead of the outright revocation. That means a more proportionate response that's firm where it's needed and fair where it's possible. This bill is about balance, getting the firearms out of the hands of gangs and criminals while restoring respect, clarity and fairness for licensed firearm owners. More than 8,000 submissions and 700,000 individual points of feedback helped shape this work. And I know many of you contributed. Your input made this bill stronger, clearer and definitely more workable. There are many other changes in the bill, and further details will be provided in the coming week. You will all have access to the full bill once it is introduced to Parliament. I'm not going to pretend that I got everything that I wanted. Coalition government means compromise, but I can tell you honestly that around 95% of what I fought for is in this bill. Putting my ACT Party spokesperson hat on for just a moment, I would remind you that ACT has invoked the agree to disagree provision in our coalition agreement over the firearms registry, meaning that ACT alone continues to be the main and only opposer to the firearms registry. We will not stop pushing for fairness, for balance, and for measures that actually improve public safety. And if needed, I will continue to agree to disagree with our coalition partners on some of these key firearm issues. I have been able to do this already, and I still work constructively with the wider reform with my coalition partners. But despite the differences, we've achieved some real progress. Relief for shooting clubs and ranges, stronger powers against the gangs, and now a complete rewrite of the Arms Act that respects you and your role in our country. The bill will have its first reading and it will be referred to Select Committee before the end of the year. Unlike those changes that have been rushed through under previous governments, I am committed to getting this right. That means we'll have a full 6-month Select Committee process where you'll be able to have your say and the opportunity to iron out any wrinkles I might have missed in this first round. So I ask you, please stay engaged, have your say through the upcoming submission process and help us build an enduring law that's going to last. I want to thank everyone who's contributed to this work, including my officials and the Firearms Safety Authority, police, the firearms community, and my colleagues across government, and to you. I am humbled by your unwavering support on this journey so far. We're not there yet, but without your backing, none of this would have been possible.
If I'm personally creating 3D files for somebody who has come to me with a disability to help them handle a firearm, how does the new bill affect me?
If you have a firearms licence, you can be in possession of any plans to 3D printer. It's those that do not have a firearms licence that are then in possession of a 3D blueprint file and they have the machine and other qualifying criteria. They are the ones that will be targeted. The licensed firearm owners will not. It's a very good question to ask because many of you will see that all over the world they are currently banning 3D blueprinting. The blueprint plans. We're not going to do that here in New Zealand. The reason why is because we are innovative thinkers here. We have companies that are using 3D manufacturing for stocks, etc. They're just not doing it anywhere else in the world. We're not going to stop them from doing what they're doing. So as long as you have a plan and you have a firearms licence, you're all good.
Regarding changing the definition of prohibited to restricted, will that then carry the same definition of restricted now, or will you have to modify that?
Yes, I mean, as I mentioned, they weren't really prohibited, they were restricted, right? And one of the other aspects of the Arms Act is I'm trying to change negative wording into more positive wording, writing it in plain English so that you can understand what you need to do. So within the Act, you'll see that it will be an offence to do ABC, but there will be a defence to that in DEF, so that you will have a really good understanding using plain English and using more positive language. So currently in the Act it says you must not. We've changed that to you can do, making it more respectful to you so that you can understand it.
Under the prohibited definition, there's different storage regulations compared to the restricted ones, right?
They will all stay the same. One of the things that I'm quite keen to look at, if we are lucky enough to earn your vote for the next election, is the sheer number of licences, currently prohibited licences, and the entire licensing regime. If given the opportunity, that's another avenue that I want to go down. I think there are too many prohibited endorsements at the moment.
More a question for the actual people here. Who here is intending to put a submission in? Because we all need to do it. Okay, don't rely on your mate to do it or someone else. Everyone has to put a submission in.
On that, if I can just speak to that. Ladies and gentlemen, I did a arms shooting clubs, shooting ranges bill earlier this year. And when it came up for submissions, we got 8,000 submissions from the licensed firearm community. What you probably don't know is that Gun Control New Zealand put in a submission with over 6,000 signatures. It was only counted as one. But when this Arms Act comes through, if you do not submit and tell us that you support it, we could be drowned out by the anti-gunners. There are more of them than there are licensed firearm owners. If you like the bill when you see it, you must support it. If you keep quiet, you will be your own downfall.
So understanding the new bill that's coming forward can be really complicated for regular hunters and people who don't do this day to day. Other than going to Colfo and getting our summary to make it simple, will the government be putting out any guidance to basically plain terms the agreement so we know what we're signing up for?
Yes, absolutely. We have over 50 policy changes in the new Arms Act. There's going to be a lot of new learning to do for the regulator and also for the police. Then we get to the firearm owners, the ones that have to abide by the law. So there will be information that comes out to you and there will be stuff that comes out from the government in short form detailing what is going to be in the bill and what your commitments are. As I mentioned earlier, the regulator will now have the ability to actually get advice out to you. Currently they can only give advice as per what's in the legislation. We're widening this so that you can have a better understanding coming from not only government but from the Firearms Safety Authority about what you need to do.
Not a question, Nicole, but a big thank you to you and the ACT Party for doing this wonderful work in the firearms space. We're very fortunate to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This has been a hard slog. It's been 5 years of working on this and it's been 2 years of negotiation with my colleagues. I could not have done this without your support, but it's not over yet. This is 10% of the way. Actually getting the bill through, you submitting, this is now your job. I've done my bit, you guys need to come out, you need to get your friends, your family and everybody else on board to support the Arms Act so that it wins. It's now over to you. We'll have more information for you in upcoming weeks. Be prepared to submit if you can over the Christmas break. Thank you everyone and thank you for your continued support.